everyone, and welcome to 50 Best Talks. What is luxury? Coco Chanel said it's the opposite of vulgarity. Some say it's a state of mind, others that it's everything beyond the necessary. But when it comes to gastronomy, what's the true meaning of this word in 2023? My name is Julia Sgarbi, and I'm the Deputy Content Editor at 50 Best. I'm excited to be here to guide you through today's event, which is hosted by the 50 Best East and North Africa's 50 Best Restaurants 2023, sponsored by San Pellegrino and Aquapana, which is being announced tomorrow. If you were with us at 50 Best Talks here in Abu Dhabi last year, welcome back. But if you're new to this, I will quickly explain what you can expect from the next hour. 50 Best Talks began in 2014. Its target was to become the go-to place for thought-provoking answers to the hottest questions in the hospitality business. 9 years later, the event has traveled across the world, from Singapore to Bogota, and it has featured lots of amazing chefs, including Massimo Bottura and Dominique Ren, among many, many others. But we could not be more glad to be landing here today in Abu Dhabi, our host city, for the latest edition of this Thought Leadership Forum on Gastronomy. What better place to talk about luxury than the Emirates, where some of the world's best and most luxurious restaurants and hotels are located. I will shortly invite our outstanding speakers to join me on stage for some live interviews, some presentations, and some food tastings. There will be 4 sessions in total, after which I hope that you will stay with us to enjoy the luxurious canapés prepared by our host, the Four Seasons Hotel at Maryah Island. Indeed, let me take the chance to state how delighted we are to be partnering with them for this event. They have a long history of luxury and of hospitality, and we couldn't have asked for a better host. And located on Al Maryah Island to boot, Abu Dhabi Premier's lifestyle destination. So a big thanks to them for having us today. Now, a quick word on social media. We would really love for you to snap, share, and upload all of the highlights from today on your chosen digital channels. But please, don't forget to tag the world's 50 best and hashtag Mina's 50 best. Here's a handy reminder of what to include. Now, of course, we would not be here today without the invaluable support of our esteemed partners. So please join me in one special thanks to them. They're going to come up on the screens. They are led by the Department of Culture and Tourism Abu Dhabi, as well as our headline sponsor, San Pellegrino and Aquapana, producers of the world's leading fine dining waters. You hopefully have already enjoyed some of our sponsored products, such as Nespresso's delicious coffee, Estrella d'Amenet, the Mediterranean spirit, and Lara's impressive non-alcoholic cocktails. But now, let's talk about luxury. In recent times, this concept has begun to take new meanings in hospitality. Is a dish of foie gras shaved with white truffle still as much of a luxury as it was 15 years ago? Or have chefs and diners started to appreciate different and sometimes unexpected ingredients? To begin our exploration, let me introduce today's first speaker. She is a chef. She's a writer and a consultant whose 30-year career is sure to have caught your attention. She has educated the world about the diverse cuisines of the Middle East and Mediterranean region through 10 cookbooks, which have won countless accolades. Some of those she also wins herself. Earlier this month, she was voted as the winner of the Foodix Icon Award 2023. Please, let's give a round of applause to Anissa Helou. Welcome, and thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Julia.
Okay, so we are ready to start with one big question. Even though you're a cookbook writer now, not many people here today may know that you actually started your career as an art consultant, so the concept of luxury is something that has probably always been on your mind. But how has it changed since you started working in the food world?
Well, when I was an art consultant dealer, luxury meant classical things. You know, like first-class travel, fantastic hotels, glamorous parties, amazing auctions with incredible works of art. So it was all a kind of, you know, it was serious luxury. But as you say, luxury doesn't always mean the same for everybody. And when I started working in the food world, then my concept of luxury changed completely. You know, like when I first discovered camel meat and a camel butcher in Damascus, I was writing a book about street food, so there's nothing luxurious about street food. Except for me, it was kind of discovering new things were, you know, very precious because it was amazing for my work. So I was walking down this kind of street which had a lot of street food, and all of a sudden I came nose to nose with a camel head. It was dead. It looked alive.
Let me actually show you the camel head, and we've also got some photos of Anissa through her career, her new life as a chef, and here's the camel. So, and I happened to be with my mother, who's a very elegant, very kind of, you know, like not a street food lady. So I stopped, and I didn't really know what it was, except that it looked like a butcher shop. So I went in and asked the guy, why do you have this kind of bloody head outside? And he said, because I sell camel meat. So I said, I have to try it. And my mother was looking at me like this and didn't want to go into this very modest, very kind of run-down place. But I made her come in and I asked him to make us some kebabs. And for me that was like incredible because I didn't know anything about camels and I didn't know that camels could be eaten. I mean, in Lebanon we don't have camels. And certainly in London there are no camels. And no camel meat. So we tried it. I mean, you know, he made us kebab. He suggested that it should be mincemeat rather than pieces because it's tough. Camel meat is tough. And I mean, then the luxury went because it wasn't very good. We are going to travel with Anissa across the region today. So there's more. This is Damascus, Syria. But next is the actual common hub. So could you tell us about this?
Well, that was amazing because I was doing a TV series here called The Chef Discovers. And we were going all around the Emirates for me to try Emirati food and products and whatever, and then cooking some of it. And one of the scenes was a feast at somebody's house. So we all arrived, you know, convoy, the producers, whatever. And I'm preparing myself to go to the feast, you know, the majlis. And then they told me, no, you can't go. I said, what do you mean I can't go? I'm the star of the show. Well, I was one of the stars. I wasn't the star. And he said, no women in the majlis. You go to the mother and the wife. And I said, what about the camel hump? Because they've been talking about the camel hump all, you know, throughout the drive. And I said, what about the camel hump? I need to taste it. And they said, we'll send it to you. They never sent me the camel hump. Luckily, the next day I was in a catering kitchen to learn some Emirati dishes, and they were preparing another feast with a camel hump. So I went to the chef, I said, please, just take a little bit from under and give me a taste. And I blogged it actually, it went kind of mini viral. And I tasted it. Again, it wasn't like amazing.
Until you got your own camel.
Until a friend of mine, a very kind and generous friend of mine, gave me a baby camel in Sharjah. So I went, she asked me if I wanted to go to the farm. I said, no, I'll just go to the slaughterhouse. So it was incredible. They delivered this baby camel, and I went into the slaughterhouse, and I saw the whole process. I mean, I don't want to scare you all, but, you know, they killed it in front of me. And then I said, I don't want anything, just give me the ham. I took it to my brother's house, who were absolutely horrified, to cook it, to see what it was like. This turned out to be amazing, because he was a milk-fed, I mean, that baby was milk-fed still, and it was very tender and amazing. And that was, for me, I wrote an article for Lucky Beach and a chapter in my book in English. I mean, all these kind of very normal, I mean, normal, it's not very normal, but kind of simple events, for me, represent luxury because they're very precious to my work.
And while we're on the topic of camels, Anissa has been very kind and shared her own recipe for camel meatballs with the lovely chefs here at the Four Seasons. This dish is also included in her book, Feast, Food of the Islamic World. So what do you think, Anissa? Should we let the audience try it?
Absolutely, absolutely. And I hope they won't be horrified by the idea of camel meat.
While we wait for it to come, I'm sure it's coming out the doors right now. We're going to keep traveling with Anissa. Next, we are in Zanzibar.
Well, for Feast, Food of the Islamic World, I traveled practically, not everywhere in the Islamic world, but I traveled extensively, and to countries that I hadn't been to before, including Zanzibar. And Zanzibar was really fascinating. Although the food was very similar to Oman because they belonged to Oman before, my guide, it was during Ramadan, I was there during Ramadan, and my guide took me to his mother for iftar because I was asking everybody, where can I have iftar to see what they serve, etc. So he took me to his mother, and that's his mother. And there, she was making everything for iftar, the dishes and the bread. I had seen bread made with very loose dough before, you know, in Greece for the church breads, but they baked it in the oven to start with, and, you know, in a kind of like pan. But, you know, Simai's mother was making the very, even looser dough than the one I saw in Greece, but she was baking the bread in a frying pan. And what she did first was like, she sprinkled the pan with water, then spread this very loose dough, as you can see, and then put it on the wood fire. That's all very normal. Until she turned the pan over to crisp the top of the bread. And I was thinking, it's going to fall into the fire. And it didn't, because of the water in the pan first and the very loose dough. And that was amazing. Again, it was something new to me. I had never seen it. Also, the taste of the bread was not particularly new. It was a bit like focaccia, but because it was made slightly differently and not baked in an oven, it had a slightly different texture and a lot of sesame seeds in it.
It's interesting how something as simple as bread can feel very luxurious.
Exactly.
That's when she was finishing it, right?
And then I saw it everywhere on the street because it was kind of, because of Ramadan, women were cooking on the street to sell to people for iftar, just before iftar. And so it was a very interesting discovery, and again, very precious.
Very precious. This is another great story.
Well, that was actually one of my most luxurious experience, because also it's tragic. It was in Kashgar, in Uyghur country, and as you know, they're being, very repressed and persecuted. And I was there at the they had been before, but when I was in Kashgar in 2017, it was the beginning of like even more clamping down on them. And one morning I decided to go alone without my friend, who was my guide as well, because I wanted to kind of get a feel for the country, for what was going on. And you know, the Uyghurs were absolutely wonderful, very honest, very welcoming. As soon as I said Salam Alaikum, you know, it was like welcoming. And very honest too. And so I saw this tiny bakery, very modest, you know, kind of not a hole in the wall, but kind of almost. And I went in, I stuck my head in just to see what was happening, because I recognized the bakery from the tenor. It was before they started. And so I went in and I saw this husband and wife. He was making a gigantic amount of dough, very firm dough, which again is kind of unusual. And and he was dividing it, and he gave it to her to shape. So I went to her part and sat and stood with her and looked at how she was making. Normally, the bread in Regal country is not multi-layered, but she was making a multi-layered one. And multi-layered breads are, again, fascinating because you have different techniques everywhere. And she was working hard with this soft dough, like hard dough, flattening it first, then rolling it into cylinders like you see in one corner. And then she stood the cylinder, you can put the film on, she stood the cylinder and started coiling it and pushing it down to create the layers, and then she flattened it. And all while talking to her kids who were around her, and like this was just an amazing scene. And of course, there was no conversation apart from Syria, and yes, she recognized Syria, and Abdullah, the name of her son. Otherwise, I didn't understand anything, and of course, she didn't understand anything. But just spending this morning with her was incredible for me because also they were not allowed to interact with foreigners, and I couldn't go into any house there to cook with anybody. And it was just like, it was incredible. It was very special, really.
Yeah. And the bread is actually thin.
Yeah, and then when she flattens it, again, the technique is interesting because she raises the edges, and then she has a very short rolling pin. Click on it. And first she flattens the inside with her hand, then with a short rolling pin, she flattens it more, and then she passes it to the husband who stamps it and then slaps it against the wall of the tandoor. So for a food writer, seeing all this like close up is incredible because not only do you learn and then you can write about it and everything, but I mean sometimes I don't think I can repeat what she's doing. I mean also it requires, and skill and endless repetition. But these are very precious moments.
And even though you might not be able to replicate it, now it's here, we're all watching it. So it's forever in our memory, right?
Exactly.
Here there's been stamped.
Yeah, he's stamping and then he put it in there. And then you see the final result, which is a beautiful bread.
It's absolutely beautiful.
Yeah.
Was it delicious?
It was very good. unlike the camel, like the first camel.
We are traveling to Uzbekistan next.
Yeah, Uzbekistan. That was very interesting because I went to the market in Tashkent, which is a huge market, and my guide said there is a baker section at the back that people don't go to because it's not. I mean, you could walk in if you wanted to, but it's not a public place. So I said, yeah, let's go and see what it's like. And then I met a really nice, I didn't put that in, but there was a baker who had, instead of a pit oven tandoor, he had like a cave. And he slapped the bread all around. And he stuck half of his body into this very hot oven. It was incredible. And then I came across this guy who wasn't making a multi-layered bread, but by shaving the sides, cutting into the sides, created the effect of the multi-layered. And again, that video, when I put it on Instagram, was incredibly popular because it was so unusual. I mean, things like this you don't see around every corner.
You definitely don't. And there is, as you said, there's that level of luxury in witnessing it firsthand.
Exactly.
Kind of like this. We've changed change of scene, no more beautiful breads.
This is the ultimate luxury for me. Because that was in Iran during Ashura. And the hotel, I was staying in a hotel in Isfahan, not far from the mosque, where this kitchen was. The kitchen was behind the mosque. And I knew that in Ashura, they have this tradition of giving out food and cooking for a lot of people. I mean, in some kitchens, they're cooking for 10,000 people. In this particular kitchen, they were cooking for 3,000 people. And again, witnessing this process and also the giving out of the food was amazing for me because first I was lucky to be there for Ashura. I didn't plan it like this. And then seeing all these traditions traditions that are so important for food knowledge, culinary lore. I mean, I mean, if you want to use the word luxury again, they are luxury for me because they're very, very rare to come across.
You have to be exactly a very lucky food writer. But you're sharing it with us all today, which we do appreciate. So these are the parcels that...
This was actually the hotel. The hotel was cooking for 200 people, and it's rene, which is a kind of Persian stew with the yellow lentils and a bit of meat. I don't know, I think they put a little bit of meat. And they packed it like this, and people just, it's not for poor people or anything. It's just for people. It's like a alms, tradition of alms. And they came and they just took whatever they wanted to take. And some women came with pots as well. And they took, then the guys who were cooking put the food in the pot. And it was, and then you start talking to them and you ask them what they're doing and etc. And all this eventually goes in the book or in an article.
What is the meaning of Ashura in their food culture?
It's the martyrdom of Hussein, and it's a very intense time for the Shia Muslims. And they have a procession. I went to the procession in Lebanon, in Beirut, where they all lament the martyrdom. Then they're like imams or the not muezzin. I mean, the religious people kind of recounting the story of the martyrdom, and then the women. I went to the women's procession and they were crying. He was crying. I mean, he was sobbing. The guy who was telling the story on speakers, loudspeakers. And it's a very, very intense, I can't remember if it's 2 or 3 days, and then the men, they kind of like, punish themselves, they beat themselves up. And it's the most important time of the year for the Shiites.
And what is the reason they distribute the food?
I think it's part of the sort of religious hospitality, sense of hospitality, of sharing, And in Yazd, where I was in 2019, I went to a kitchen where they were actually cooking for 10,000 people, and there were 2 lines, the women on one side and the men on the other, and the lines went like way beyond that wall there. I mean, and they were all very serene, very patient, everybody waiting. And they took, if they came with their kids, they took like 3 or 4 boxes. And in that kitchen in Yazd, they were boxing the rice and the stew the same way as in that hotel in Isfahan. And it's just a very intense, they have processions, like the Christ, the crucifixion of Christ. I mean, it's the equivalent of Good Friday, basically. Maybe I'm saying it wrong, but it's that kind of very intense, tragic time for the religious, Shia religion.
Food opens up so many interesting cultural moments, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, food is culture, really, and you learn a lot from. And the wonderful thing is that when you start talking about food, everybody will talk to you about food. If I start talking about art, they might want to talk to me, they might not want to talk to me, depending, But as soon as I talk about food, unless they're really like obnoxious, they will talk to me.
This was maybe one of those moments for you, learning how to make noodles?
That was actually, in Uzbekistan. So I was wrecking for a culinary tour, and we went to this woman in her house, again very modest. I mean, my food life has nothing to do with luxury, except for the precious moments where I'm learning something, but not with luxury as we understand it, like glamour or, comfort or whatever. So we went to this woman's house who was making noodles, and then my friend who was with me said, "Why don't you try your hands at making noodles?" I did. I don't think I succeeded very well, but I managed.
The special moment was the learning, right?
Exactly.
No matter the result.
Exactly. I didn't make it in London. I didn't go back and make it.
Let's see, what else we have? This is special.
Well, I think for me, as a food writer, maybe the most luxurious moments is when I'm invited into strangers' homes. Because home cooking, in that whole region, home cooking is much more interesting restaurant cooking is great, but home cooks are the kind of keepers of, you know, the lore, the traditions, the recipes, information, all this. And here I was in Resht, in the Caspian, in Ilan province, and a friend of a friend said, "Do you know anybody there?" I said, "No." And he said, "I'm going to call these people and ask them to invite you for lunch." And they did, and they welcomed me incredible. I mean, the Iranians are like super hospitable and kind and courteous. And there I was, lunching with total strangers and tasting the food. And she was a wonderful cook as well, and taught me a kind of yogurt dish with walnuts, where the yogurt turned pink because of the walnuts. And it was just incredible, really.
I think there's one more moment like this, but
yeah, this was in a village.
In
a village outside Tehran, and the guy sitting at the end is the friend of a friend, and he took me there, and I was there all day with them and watching them make kebabs and rice and everything. And again, it was a very precious moment.
And you know, in the world that we live in today, actually preserving these traditions is a luxury in itself.
Of course, because I mean, things are changing a lot. I mean, apart from modern times, you have, like, I'm an orphan of two countries, basically, Lebanon and Syria, where things have not disappeared, but the civil war in Lebanon, the uprising in Syria, and the events, and now the economic crisis in Lebanon. So all this contributes to the fact that you might lose some culinary traditions, or things get lost. And my main purpose in my work is to preserve these traditions for future generations.
Thank you. We will all have the luxury of trying these traditions and preserving them. But thank you, Anissa.
Thank you.
Well, that was insightful, truly insightful, and I can see that you've enjoyed the meatballs, so hopefully you've enjoyed them even more, knowing how luxurious they are. I am hoping that you have warmed up following that incredible introduction. So next, let us continue on this exploration of what luxury means in gastronomy, but this time from a different perspective. Our next speaker is going to discuss the irony of luxury, and that's an interesting one, right? He comes from Singapore, but he's been living and working in Dubai for nearly a decade now. He was the original chef and co-founder of Three Fails, the restaurant that was named #1 in Middle East and North Africa's 50 Best Restaurants 2022 last year. Then he created White Rice Co., his boutique hospitality company, which created such delicious concepts as Otoro here in Abu Dhabi, as well as 11 Good Fire and Goldfish in Dubai. He's an accomplished chef as well as a restaurateur, and he has some interesting thoughts to share with you, as well as a little surprise. Let's give a warm welcome to Akmal Anuar.
So many people. I didn't sleep last night, so I'm going to go through this topic as simple and as human as I can. I'm not used to this, but I'll try my best. So the topic today I'm sharing with you is the irony of luxury. I've been in Dubai for close to 10, 11 years. So what is luxury when you're living in a city when you have everything? That's basically everything. Everything comes to you. Everything's on the mobile. You call, they come. Spring onions to Louis Vuitton bag, they come to you. Does a waiter or a maitre d' welcomes you to the restaurant and pulls your chair out, pours a drink, or taking a first class flight in Emirates Airlines, having 3-course meal, and then when you want to sleep, you can recline and sleep. Is that luxury? For some, it's necessity. For some, it's a must. Where else in a certain country or area, you don't have access to clean water. You don't have education. You cannot afford education. You cannot afford food. To be able to see meat is an absolute luxury. So what is exactly luxury? From my perspective, in Dubai or in the UAE, you see caviar everywhere. Caviar in many menus. Caviar in burrata, caviar in whatever. So I cook caviar too, so I'm also at fault. So this is a few of my dishes that we put caviar. A little bit of facts. According to statistics, in the 70s to the early millennium, there was only wild caviar from Caspian Sea countries. An estimate of 350 tons of caviar we produced in that time. And can you just imagine how many sturgeons were killed to produce caviar? And per fish, you would only get 5 to 7% of caviar in each animal. So that's a lot of fish during those times. So due to overfishing, the number of sturgeon is depleting. So prices went up, and you literally need contact or some sort of somebody you know to be able to get this fish. Now we live in a world where everything is sustainable, farming, and we have caviar coming from China, Italy, Hungary, that produces a hybrid of caviar. So right now we have suppliers coming to us, begging us to buy caviar. Well, back then it's so hard to find caviar. So is this luxury anymore or no? In China alone, it supplies 2/3 of the caviar around the world. So whatever you're eating now probably came from China. How true? I'm not really sure. But one thing for sure, there won't be shortage. So what has this become? Does luxury is something available and people cannot afford it, or is it something unavailable and everybody wants it? So I'll now talk about my life. I remember when I was between 18 to 20 years old, I was working in the kitchen. I came from a very humble family. I've never seen things like caviar or truffles. So I remember, in the kitchen, I came with a small bag, with a small peeler. Everything I tasted, I touched. I was very careful. My boss said, "This is very expensive. I'm going to kill you if you spoil this." So those were the days. Things came from Europe. I've never seen things like that. I remember my first toss of pasta on a pan, with crustacean oil, French butter, egg pasta. My chef would teach me with Tipo 00 flour from Italy. I felt flour like talcum powder. That really was something simple but so good. After a year or two working my ass off, washing salads, cutting parfait with ring rolls, chopping what after my chef portions meat. So that felt very unbelievable. I go back to those days, I feel, wow, I came a long way. Now, I came to the UAE. So I dreamt to have my own restaurant. I was working for the man, so I'm not what? I'm not going to cook for you anymore, I'm not going to work for you anymore. I want to start my own restaurant. I was a good cook. I had good palate. I trusted my tongue. But that was it, I didn't know what reality was. I didn't understand the business part of it, I didn't understand anything. All I knew was 4 blocks of walls, let's open a restaurant. One day I was watching television and it was on BBC. I saw Heston Blumenthal. Heston did a potato which was mind-blowing. Boiling to freezing to dehydrating to I don't know, God knows what, just to produce chips. So when I saw that, that's quite something very innovative. But I was starting off a restaurant. I couldn't afford many things. So this was one of the dishes that I did, but yes, it's a potato. But there were times when I didn't have cash in the till or in the cash register. We would order from the supplier would sell it and say, "Chef, I need cash." I said, "I don't have cash now, my restaurant's not busy. Tomorrow, whatever I will make tonight, I will send you tomorrow." Okay, let me call my manager. He called the manager said, "No, take cash. If not, take back the potato." I'm like, "Come on guys, it's potato. Give me, tomorrow I pay you potato. Take my passport, take whatever, take my car key." They took back the potato. That was humiliation for me. As a chef, and also the world's 50 best back then, and it came to a point where I couldn't even pay potato. That was absolutely devastating. Then came a dish when I wanted to really show people that, okay, the restaurant could serve something a bit mind-blowing, a little bit expensive. Again, potato was out. All I had was sourdough bread, toasted, chopped trimmings of tuna, and truffles from a can. But it tasted very good though. So that was the start of it. It was slow, so I couldn't afford many things, so it was just trimmings and trimmings and trimmings. And then, okay, now I had money. Okay, so then potato came back. Potato came back, thank God. Now I had potato, I cooked what Heston did a little bit, I innovate, I chopped some tuna, still trimming, but now I had proper toppings. I could put sea urchin and still truffles from the can. One day I had some cash in my pocket. This was the exact Instagram post I did. I had some cash, so it was truffle season. I've bought kilos and kilos of truffle before, but this never felt good. I called a guy, I said, "How much is 100 gram? He said, 400 dirham. Send this now." So this was the first time. March 4th, 2017, Akmal afforded his own truffles from his pocket money. The truffles smell 1 million times better. It tastes 1,000 times better. It's yours first time, your own truffles. Now the big boy comes. So it grew. I took on professional photography. I had time for myself. I had a bigger team now. So I wanted things to look better. Now it's no more about survival, now it's about desire. What I could do now. I don't say how, I say I want it now. It's a different kind of game now. So this is all the evolution of the dish. So potato, tuna, and truffle. This is my family. We look like window curtains. So I came from a very, very humble family. My dad, as you can see beside me, and my mom with the red, I don't know, selendang. So I was in a family of 3 siblings. So they got married, and we had children and all that. And now it multiplied into too much. I came from a Muslim family, very simple. In the 90s was growing up, tough love. My parents had to work really, really hard. I didn't really go to school. I had to work for my parents in the weekend, get off work at 3 p.m., and then make my way to see my friends, have a smoke, whatever. And if I wanted to play music, I want to buy the latest cassette for my Walkman. Those days, it was very, very simple. Only stories were told, and the storytellers, I consider them legends because they experienced it. I wish I could go back to those times. It was very, very, very simple. Now, I'm involved with 6 restaurants, 1 consultancy firm, I have a family business. By the way, that's my parents' hawker store in Singapore. On the left is where I grew up working. It's been there since 1992. It still looks the same, it didn't change. That is the village where my grandfather came from, in northern part of Malaysia. Everything needs to be done by yourself. You don't have, oh, let's call the butcher and send some nice tenderloin. No, you kill the cow and then you cook. And those are my parents rocking on till today. My point today is what you reflect luxury. I think it's about gratitude. I think it's about experiences, appreciation. You know, not only about expensive things, not only about, oh, who has the latest Rolex, who drives the Mercedes G-Wagon. I would love to have one, but you know, it's a different game. The luxury is to be in love, to be loved. Go hug your mom and dad if they're alive, you know. Kiss your kids, teach your friends, teach your peers, pass down knowledge, tell stories, put milk with your cereal, you know, those kind of things. Life is short. Count your blessings, say thank you more. Say thank you to everything. Say thank you because you are privileged. I say thank you because I'm in Dubai, everything is ready, everything is safe. Help someone make their day right. Everyone in the room is fortunate enough, all of us. We came to earth with nothing and we will live with nothing. So whatever we have right now is a win. Before I end, I have a special guest that I want to introduce you, who has probably born with luxury, and I leave her to say her own words.
Hello everyone, good afternoon. Today I'm going to be talking about my life living in the UAE. My name is Sophia and I am 8 years old. I was born in Dubai and I have an older sister named Sophia and a younger one named Maha. But they were both born in Singapore. So let me tell you my short story. I go to an international school sent by my driver every morning, and when I finish school, at home my nanny prepares me food such as chicken rice or pasta. And if my mommy is in a good mood, I get ice cream too. Every day after school, I have extra activities like surfing and acting classes. I get to go out and meet my friends and enjoy the afternoon outside. I come home before dinner, have a shower, and my nanny prepares my dinner, or my parents sometimes brings it out to one of my dad's restaurants, Goldfish. Because I love sushi. We order our usual yellowtail carpaccio and wagyu truffle sliders. And if I'm really hungry, we have bone marrow and T-bone steak and a 11-wood fire. We eat till our bellies are full and go home to my comfy bed to sleep. And I have no worries because I feel safe and sound in my home. Is this luxury? Am I the luckiest girl? Or is it just because I live in Dubai? Thank you.
Well, Akmal, thank you so much for the emotional presentation. Big thanks to Lito ICF too. That was incredible. So far we've heard two very different, but in some ways complementary visions of luxury. We've gone from art consulting to camels, and then from caviar to gratitude. For this next session, we are going to hear a very special story, one that has many lessons to teach in terms of going beyond luxury. This mother and son duo joins us today from Amman in Jordan. They're the creators of Shams El Balad, a picturesque restaurant perched atop of a hill, which has become a must-visit gastronomic stop in the city. But, as they will explain, there's nothing conventional about this place. And you will soon discover just how deep their thinking goes around luxury. Please, welcome to the stage, Maha, Dahmash, and Qais, Malhas.
Hello. Thank you for this great honor. My love affair with Shams, as I like to call it, started 23 years ago. I was the marketing manager at the time for a large company with a newly discovered passion for plants, not food. I had 2 young children and was caring for my 2 elderly parents who had just been displaced for the second time, first from Palestine after the Nakba of 1948, and second from Kuwait in 1992. So I was tired and I was overwhelmed. So I put my career on hold and became an avid gardener. One day I had a dinner at home and I wanted to fix up my parents. So I went around looking for simple ceramic pots. Unfortunately, my search came out empty, although flower shops were in abundance in Amman, but finding quality potted plants was really a challenge at the time. Soon, my decision to redecorate my home became one to redirect my whole life. I worked with local artisans to design handmade pots and opened a small shop selling potted plants as a sustainable alternative to flowers. I called it Shams, Arabic for sun, the source of all living things. It was really the most exhilarating and challenging of times. I was teaching myself everything about pottery, gardening, design. All the while, I was learning how to manage a business for the first time. Over the next several years, we quickly expanded into gardening, floristry, and event design. We were pioneers. We created decorations and ornaments using all sorts of natural and local material in season. The trend in Amman was ostentatious, French Baroque style. But I believed in simple elegance, that less is more. And key to my style was working with my surroundings and making use of things that people usually overlooked. We specialized in creating spaces that made you feel safe, happy, and inspired. Our business was to connect people with beauty and nature. That connection was a comfort that many were lacking. So it was, in the most classical sense, a luxury.
In 2011, my father, Malhas, founded Al-Himma, a foundation for the preservation of human and natural heritage. The name Al-Himma comes from an ancient Arab tradition of sustainable land management. Jordan today is one of the world's water poorest countries. We import more than 87% of our food. So Al-Himma was a very poignant reminder of the connection to the land that we had unfortunately lost. The foundation worked with over 80 farmers in the south of Jordan to revive indigenous varieties of chickpeas, lentils, and wheat, leveraging age-old knowledge to save the foodways that have always sustained us. On the human heritage front, Al-Himma also worked to restore the old souk in Ma'an, Jordan, and supported an archaeological expedition to excavate one of the oldest sugar mills in the world, in the Jordan Valley.
In 2013, as part of Al-Himma, Hazem restored his family's abandoned homes in downtown Amman. This is Hazem, by the way, he's sitting right there. We're talking about Indonesia. The charming property with its adobe mud houses and fountain courtyard told the story of our city since the 1920s. It was exactly the type of heritage that was being lost at an alarming rate. There, we married our work at Shams and Al Hima by opening a small cafe. We wanted to highlight our food as more than just fuel, but a reflection of our identity, culture, and heritage. So we called it Shams al-Balad, the sun of the city. We were serving the staple ingredients you could find in any Palestinian or Jordanian home. A baker in the nearby town of Madara made our bread using Al-Hima's wheat, and Mubarak, our cheesemaker, would collect fresh eggs from his neighbors every day and deliver it to us daily. We didn't even have a kitchen at first. It was a true labor of love and a shot in the dark, but people loved it. Suddenly the cafe became a hit, and we became a destination. We had bridged the gap. We were offering something with real value that people were yearning for. The comfort and pleasure of authentic, honest food was a revelation. In spite of its simplicity, this experience was a newfound luxury. While we did our best to keep up with our success, we just couldn't keep up. So we were happy that our son came back and joined us, and that was the start of a new chapter in the story of Shams.
In 2016, I moved back to Amman after 5 years in New York City, studying film and Middle Eastern studies. I wanted to be a writer and a director, and I thought, maybe I could help manage the cafe on the side. But I had a feeling that in restaurants, like in film, you're either all in or you're all out. So I arrived one afternoon in August, and at 8 a.m. the next morning, I was at Shams for the first day of an ongoing journey of discovery. The first few years were brutal. It felt like driving a car at 100 kilometers an hour with the engine on fire and trying to fix it as you go. Every weekend, we were preparing for war. I had nightmares of the printer buzzing non-stop and flooding us with tickets that came through many, many times. And one Friday, I was actually woken up to news that the whole cafe had flooded due to a burst water heater. And so we emptied buckets of cheese and scooped the water out onto the streets, and we managed to be up and running by 9 a.m. In the beginning, every day felt like a gruesome 16-hour wrestling match. But with time, we started practicing ballet instead. We parsed through and solved operational problems one by one. I learned how to manage a kitchen and handle stress and be a better manager. We outgrew the self-service cafe model and transitioned to a full-service restaurant, eventually expanding into the adjacent property with an actual kitchen. And as we worked more mindfully on our menu, I began considering more conceptual questions about the kind of restaurant we wanted or needed to be. What does it mean to be an Arabic restaurant? And what is a contemporary Arabic dining experience?
On the most basic level, dining at restaurants in the Arab world is a luxury in and of itself. For us, the ingredients we use are eaten in homes and at popular restaurants at a fraction of the price. As a business sourcing directly from small-scale producers, everything simply costs us more. While we were not a white tablecloth establishment, we were offering a luxury within our own context. People paid the price at French or Japanese restaurants in Amman. But it was not widely accepted that our own food could command equal value. So how do we justify the monetary value of the experience we were offering?
Thinking about the concept of value was in fact the key to unlocking a better understanding of luxury. When we think of a luxury, it denotes some form of perceived value. It can be utility, comfort, or more often than not, prestige. There is a significant social element at play. What qualifies as a luxury is really a reflection of how our society thinks and interacts with the world. What items or experiences do we deem more valuable than others? What excites us? And what do we agree to pay more for? Economics play a role in defining luxury, but there are also political forces continuously shaping our worldview. And with it, what we as communities choose to celebrate as luxuries. In the Arab world, our conception is deeply linked to our colonial history. Our idea of luxury disproportionately favors Western cuisines and ingredients, techniques and customs over our own. How we experience the world is indeed still a reflection of the way power flows within it. Why are people willing to pay a premium for caviar, truffle, and uni, but not for the equally delicious and difficult akul? As I started to consider the form and function of restaurants, I realized that food was the form of expression. And the restaurant, much like film, was a medium in its own right. Much like film too, the restaurant as we know it today was born a Western medium. The brigade system itself was modeled after the same French military machine that plundered much of our region for centuries. I encountered this legacy in even the smallest of details. Like, why was it normal for a French restaurant in Amman to list haricots verts on their menu, but strange for me to write fasulia on my own? Why do they practice the agency of naming things in their own tongue, while we passively adopt foreign names for our own things? Colonized people must navigate a web of rules and norms devised by our colonizers, cleverly tilted against us to maintain the flow of power away from us. As a Palestinian serving Palestinian food in the city and the country with the largest Palestinian population in the diaspora, our path is even more challenging, and our success ever more crucial. We must build on and advance our heritage in order to protect our very right to exist. I am myself Western educated, and my challenge was also finding a way to express my identity as a Palestinian, Jordanian, and Arab with considerable privilege. I wanted to provide an experience connected to our heritage, but rooted in the present moment. One that speaks directly to our immediate context, while embracing our global perspective. I did not want to produce some whitewashed California version of our cooking, but something that was entirely our own, all the while acknowledging our unique positionality. The nature of the restaurant medium meant that the only way this work could be feasible was by recreating our heritage into luxury.
Luxury, however, is not by any means a fixed marker, but a changeable one. Our fundamental perception of luxury is not our own at all. It was constructed by those in power over a long period of time to serve certain interests over others. But things that are constructed can be deconstructed in turn. So there must exist a way that we can move the threshold of luxury to our advantage.
These questions all led me back, time and again, to the concept of spirit, or ruh in Arabic. How we describe the most incredible and moving food. How can cooking carry with it some divine breath of soul that renders the ordinary transcendent? I don't think it's simply sourcing or seasoning, and I don't believe it's love. That breath flows through food and speaks to something much larger within us. It speaks to who we are and how we should exist and interact with the world. So if we actually understand what creates that soul, then we can find a way to add our unique imprint. Some form of value that is truly our own and that only we could provide. That would be a luxury worth the money. If you order a manouche at Shams today, what you get is much more than the sum of its parts. Revived indigenous wheat, sustainably grown, is freshly milled on site, and goes through a long natural ferment with the only additions of water and salt, topped with fresh handmade cheese from Jarash in Jordan, our own blend of za'atar using sumac from Ajnoon and wild za'atar from Jenin in Palestine, and all mixed with some of the best olive oil in the world from Almeida in Jordan. This manouche is singular in taste, but more importantly in spirit. This expression of a manouche is a luxury experience. When you eat it, you're connecting with the land, the seasons, plants, animals, and real human beings, here and now, working with their hands to make that experience possible. The two cornerstones of our cooking have always been locality and seasonality. And while these two elements of time and place are anchors, what we actually search for is ourselves. Does this dish or experience manifest some part of us and our outlook? Why should we be the ones serving it? Do we have the right to claim and recreate it? And have we added some form of value that is truly our own? We believe that really great food is personal. It is rooted in time and place, but most importantly, has a deep-seated sense of self. And it is the combination of these three elements that endows even the simplest of foods, like manouche, with spirit. And this spirit moves and shapes us, and it has the power to change our perception. While we don't have the answers yet, I believe we are asking the right questions. How can we, as chefs and restaurateurs, change people's perceptions of value? How can we move from passively adhering to preordained notions of luxury to actively conceiving of a brighter image, rooting value in our own culture and heritage? How can we engage with the restaurant medium to create opportunity and prosperity within our own communities? And finally, can a more dynamic understanding of luxury help us build a more equitable and sustainable model for restaurants everywhere?
While it's been a winding road full of challenges, I'm proud that the seed we planted more than 2 decades ago continues to grow today as Shamsi Balad. I hope we can work together across the Arab world to shift our collective appreciation of luxury into something that better serves us and our communities. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, actually, I think the applause already said it all, but let me also say a big thank you to Qais and Maha for sharing their story. Thank you. And just like that, it's the final session for this event, and what a way to finish. Our next speaker is a chef whose influence is felt all around the world. He was born in Argentina, but he founded his restaurant on the southern coast of France, in a small village near the Italian border called Menton. Since its humble beginnings in 2006, that restaurant has captured the attentions of the world's foodies and critics, who voted it the world's best restaurant in 2019, making it now part of the best Hall of Fame. He is also responsible for a growing portfolio of venues, from Bangkok to his native Argentina, and not far from here in Dubai. Before we welcome him on stage, let's be transported to his world. Take a look at the screens.
J'ai arrivé d'Argentine en France, je connaissais rien. Je connaissais pas la culture, je connaissais pas les terroirs, je connaissais pas les produits de la région. Et j'ai construit tout de zéro. Comme commencer à prendre une toile blanche. Bonjour, bienvenue bien sûr, je suis Mauro, le chef du restaurant. Venez, je vais vous montrer. C'est un restaurant, quand les gens me demandent si je travaille en saison et combien de fois on change le menu, je dis bien sûr, on n'a pas 4 saisons, on a 365 saisons. Et c'est pour ça qu'on n'a pas de menu. On a décidé d'enlever les menus pour pouvoir suivre le jour au jour. On a la chance d'avoir nos jardins à juste 300 mètres, même ici en bas au pied du restaurant. Donc on peut dire que c'est kilomètre vraiment zéro. Vous sentez les arômes de jasmin, d'oranger, ces parfums, c'est magnifique. Avec notre jardin, le matin, on vient, on cueille nos légumes et on les sert à midi. Tout pousse ici. Ici, on fait une culture en permaculture, donc on n'utilise aucun produit chimique et tout commence. Et donc, comme on a beaucoup de variétés de poules, on a plein de différentes couleurs des œufs qu'on va servir, bleu, marron, blanc, magnifique.
You were faster than I was. Let's give a warm round of applause to the chef owner of USA. How are you?
Fine, and you?
Very
Hello,
good.
everybody.
Thank you for joining us here. I'm quite far away from your home in France.
Yes, it's a pleasure. Thank you very much for inviting me and to be part of this initiative, who I think is very, very important for the industry to invite us to think about things who we consider as a norm, you know? Think about how is the future of the industry.
Well, the pleasure is all ours. I want to start by asking you, your restaurant has been in existence for nearly 17 years, and it's been operating at the very top of the culinary world. So from this spectacular vantage point, how have you seen luxury change over time?
Well, it's a huge question. But when you look at the restaurant owned by a chef, when you follow the life of the restaurant, you follow as well the life of the chef. And I remember when we opened in the beginning in 2006, when we opened Mirasur, I was 28, plenty of energy, plenty of humility, and not with the things very clear. And but I arrived at this place. We was three in the kitchen, 2 in the dining room. Today we are more than 80 people serving 45 customers. So it was a huge change on the life in my life and the life of the restaurant. But the link we start with the nature from the beginning never stopped. Always was focused on that. And I think luxury for me is perhaps how we try to do in Mirasur to bring the beauty and the powerful of the nature at the guest experience.
There is actually one particular dish in Mirasur that represents your idea of luxury very well.
Well, we use caviar as well, No, but what was interesting to hear about the 3 other speakers is luxury is a question of approach. One is to travel around the world, be in contact with the cultures, discovering very rare or special products. For another is to just to have the possibility to buy a potato in his own restaurant, and for the others to express himself, his roots, and I think all are something in common is to feel special and to give something special and unique. And that's for me is the sense of luxury. Is not the caviar. In this dish, perhaps the sense of luxury comes from the beetroot, who is the poor ingredient. But this beetroot is all about the question of time. It's a beetroot who is very special way to produce them, because we plant the seed for a year as normal beetroots, but then we take out of the ground in winter time and we keep them in the cellar, and during these 3 months we will still sleeping in the cellar. The beetroot will dry and will concentrate all the sugars. And then, when the springtime coming, when the weather is more nice, we replant the beetroot, and we start another vegetable cycle in the process, and we will use the beetroot after 2 years, 2 years and a half on the ground. So time is something we can buy, unfortunately. So time is luxury. Time means as well the patience of waiting for natural circles of things. So this dish is very important. It was very important during a long time in Mirasur. Became one. I hate this. It's signature dish. You know, it's like you become a museum. but still young. So yes, this dish is very special for me.
And still relevant today, you know, talking about nature. And that actually brings me on to the fact that you have recently been nominated Goodwill Ambassador for Biodiversity by the UNESCO organization. It's quite a big deal. Can you tell us how biodiversity relates to luxury today?
Yes, this nomination is incredibly strong for me, but I think in personal aspect, of course, but I think that's mean a lot for the industry. It's the first time who, in the history of UNESCO, who a chef is nominated ambassador. It's huge. It's mean we are in the first line to change the world. We can change the world by the food, and that is the proof who we can do. The biodiversity, of course, everybody in this room knows, is the essence of the life. Everything is connected. We are in a huge moment of danger in terms of biodiversity. Every day we lose varieties, space, vegetables, insects, animals everywhere in the world. So it's a huge problem. And as a chef, we are all time in contact with the products, and it's important to promote the consumption of different varieties of vegetables. But biodiversity is not just the vegetables and the animals, it's as well the cultures, you know. To protect the culture, we protect biodiversity. And it's how we heard every talk before, in each talk before, is as important to protect cultures and to continue to cook his own products and don't have the necessity to work with products from the other sides of the world. Everything is connected.
You know, would you say that luxury and sustainability are overlapping more and more these days?
Yes. Sustainability, you know, is of course, we can say it's a new trend, but it's not. It's a real problem. How we work from now 17 years, the time passed so fast. I remember when we opened Mirasur 17 years ago, it's like yesterday. But we always was worried about that. Is why we work on the soil. If you see this photo with the soil, it's a very rich soil, but it wasn't when we start to work in this project. I believe really part of the solution can be from our industry. Today, the 33% of the CO2, the dioxide, is generated by our industry, by the food industry. So if we take care, really, we can change the future of our planet to leave something nice at our sons. And it's really very important, but as well as part of the luxury industry, because all of us are part of luxury industry. we need to find the solutions to avoid this charge from the people who come our restaurants, hotels, and feel bad, because right now, until now, nobody think about that. But the next generations, the younger consumers, that will be something very, very important in the moment to choose the place where we will go. And I think we must to focus or to think about that. Today in Mirasur we think about how we can consider the print of ourselves, of course, as a restaurant, but as well as our guests. So we start to work with a company for find a solution to avoid that and to how we say in English, to balance the print of our guests and to avoid this charge of consume in a luxury restaurant or to come from the other side of the world to spend 1 week in a hotel.
Well, one final question for you, Mauro, then. These days, some people are saying that the idea of a luxurious, fine dining restaurant is on the way out. What are your thoughts on this issue?
Wow, I hope not. No, I think it's changed, but the way to consume is permanently on change. I think as gastronomic restaurant, we can make feel the people very special, not for using caviar, but for bring them in a very authentic and real universe, because most of the fine dining restaurants who I love to spend time is the restaurant who I feel special, I feel in a place who is unique, and is perhaps why I do many restaurants, but not a brand. I always, when I open a restaurant, I open something special and not a copy of, because I believe is the way to the fine dining restaurants continue to survive.
Well, Mauro, I think on behalf of everyone here, thank you so much for sharing your reasons.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Just a few words to conclude. As we've seen today, luxury is far from being a fixed concept. So as new forms of luxury pop up everywhere around the region, we can hope that they will become part of a more conscious and more aware gastronomic mindset. And I hope that after today, we can all appreciate the luxury that it is to go out to eat at a great restaurant, whether it's a once-in-a-lifetime meal in a faraway destination, or just your favorite dish at your usual neighborhood spot. That now concludes this edition of 50 Best Talks. I really hope you found it informative and stimulating. I do also hope that you will stay with us to enjoy some of the amazing food and drinks on offer, lovingly prepared by the Four Seasons team, led by head chef Cristian Buenrostro, made with luxurious ingredients from Chef Middle East and delicious chocolate from Valbrona. And please don't be shy to come and talk to our speakers after this if you have any questions. I hope to see you all tomorrow at the award ceremony for Middle East and North Africa's 50 Best Restaurants 2023, which will be held at the Conrad Abu Dhabi Etihad Towers. I would like to say just one more big thank you to our speakers, Anissa, Akmal, Qais, Maha, and Mauro. You should all get ready to come back on stage for a group photo. And a final thank you to the amazing audience who accompanied us today. You've all been fantastic. Have a delicious evening.